Upon the edge of breaking light, he stands, the world's burdens resting in calloused hands. His shoulders, wide, carry unseen weight. Each dawn arrives, yet he bends not to fate. The wind whispers tales of men who fell, yet his spine is a bridge unbroken. Well, dust of the past clings to his worn coat, yet forward he walks, on life's thin rope. Eyes like the storm, quiet yet deep, secrets of nights when the city did weep. He has known hunger, despair, and pain, but each fall has taught him to rise again. Mothers look on, with tears in their eyes. Children feel safe where his shadow lies. He does not boast, nor seek applause, only answers the world's silent calls. Mountains crumble, rivers may dry, yet his resolve will never die. Every scar tells a story untold, every wrinkle, a wisdom bold. When the night roars with thunder and rain, he stands, a lighthouse through the pain. His breath is steady, a calming tide, anchoring hearts that drift far and wide. Some call him strong, yet he knows the cost, for strength is born where much is lost. His hands are rough, yet gentle in touch. The weight of the world makes him soft, not much. Dreams may shatter in the hands of men, but he rebuilds again and again. His laughter rare, but when it flows, it lights the night where darkness grows. He bends for no tyrant, no cruel command, yet lifts the fallen with a quiet hand. His path is lonely, yet fully embraced, the echoes of courage in each step traced. Winter may bite, and summers may burn, still lessons of life he chooses to learn. His shoulders, a canvas of battles survived, proof of the storms through which he thrived. He walks where words have long grown tired, where promises burned and hopes expired. The road knows his name, the dust does too, each step a vow he must see through. He carries grief like a folded prayer, pressed to the chest, always there. Not for display, not for show, but held in silence, deep and low. The nights have tested his quiet will, taught him patience, taught him still. When voices failed and doors were closed, his faith stood firm, though badly bruised. He learned early the cost of care, how love can wound those who dare. Yet still he loves, though scars remain, for closed hearts rot beneath the pain. His shoulders ache, but never bow. They've made a promise they keep somehow. To hold the sky when it starts to fall, to stand when others lose it all. He has been blamed for storms he didn't make, punished for rules he didn't break. Yet blame slides off his weathered skin, like rain that knows it can't sink in. There were days when the mirror lied, showed a man too worn to try. But dawn returned with stubborn light and pulled him back from endless night. He stitched his courage from broken days, from quiet tears and whispered prayers. No medals pinned upon his chest, yet still he gives his very best. He is the pause before despair, the steady breath inside a prayer. When chaos screams and hope feels thin, his presence says, "Begin again." The world leans hard on shoulders like these, built from endurance, not from ease. And though they crack, they do not flee, they bend just enough to let others be. He learned to smile without a sound, to lift himself from hollow ground. Each time he fell, the earth would say, "Rise slowly, but rise anyway." His silence speaks in stronger ways than loud confessions, fleeting praise. For strength that shouts is quick to fade, but quiet strength is deeply made. That he was shaped by weather that never warned, by nights too long and mornings torn. Each storm that struck did not erase, but carved more depth into his face. He learned that strength is not the roar, but standing firm when shaken sore. It is choosing hope when none appears and walking forward through the years. Many leaned upon his quiet spine, unaware of the cracks inside. Yet still he bore their fragile weight, never once calling it fate. He became the ground when others fell, a well of calm where fear could dwell. His arms, a shelter from the cold, his presence worth more than gold. He watched his dreams learn how to wait, sit patiently outside life's gate. Some dreams faded, some stayed small, some rose slowly, after all. He lost much more than he ever said, buried words the heart still read. But loss became a steady flame, lighting paths through grief and shame. When anger knocked, he did not break, he answered gently, for mercy's sake. For rage is easy, sharp and fast, but kindness outlives the blast. He knows the sound of empty rooms, the quiet hum of coming gloom. Yet in that silence, seeds were sown, teaching him he's not alone. Time bent his shoulders, not his will, taught him patience, taught him skill, to choose his battles, guard his soul, and keep his heart forever whole. He stands where rivers meet the sea, between what was and what will be. His shoulders hold both past and now, and still he makes tomorrow bow. The world keeps asking, taking more, yet he remains an open door, not out of weakness, not of fear, but because love still lives in here. His breath is deep, his footing sure, though the path ahead remains obscure. For strong shoulders do not need to see, they trust the road's integrity. And if one day his strength should fade, and age begins to dull the blade, his legacy will still remain in those he lifted from their pain, that he discovered early that pain instructs. It breaks illusions, reconstructs. Each burden taught him how to stand, not as a king, but as a man. He stopped asking why storms arrive, and started asking how to survive. In that question, strength was born, from nights exhausted, hearts torn. His shoulders learned the language of time, how to carry loss without decline. They held the past without regret, and bore the future without debt. Some days were heavier than stone, when courage felt completely gone. Yet even then, in silent prayer, he rose because someone needed care. He became a shelter, not a shield, allowing wounds, refusing to yield. For armor rusts and walls decay, but open hearts still find a way. He knows that strength is often slow, it grows beneath what people show. In quiet choices made alone where character is fully grown. His shoulders bent beneath unseen cries, the kind that never reach the skies. Tears swallowed deep, never displayed so others might be less afraid. He learned that standing tall is not about how little pain is fought, but how much pain you choose to hold without becoming bitter, cold. Even hope became a discipline, a daily act, a quiet win. He practiced faith like steady breath, even when surrounded by death. The world mistook his calm for ease, never sensing the inner seas. But storms don't need an audience to prove their fierce existence. He does not ask to be admired, nor does he seek to be required. Yet when the ground begins to shake, he is the one the world will take. And though his shoulders ache at night, he greets the dawn with borrowed light. For strength, he learned, is not alone, it's shared through love. Then made his own. He never planned to be this strong. Strength arrived when things went wrong. It grew in spaces left by loss, in lessons paid at heavy cost. The world handed him fragile things, trust, and hope, and broken wings. It said, "Please hold, do not let fall." And he agreed, though worn and small. His shoulders learned to balance pain, not letting sorrow rule the reign. They held the weight of other lives, of silent wars and private fights. He became the place where fears could rest, laid gently upon his chest. He never promised easy roads, only that he'd share the load. Time watched him closely, tested more, added weight he'd never wore before. Yet still he stood, recalibrated, never bitter, never jaded. He saw how weakness hides in pride, and how true strength walks side by side. So he stayed humble, stayed aware that strength is service, not a chair. He learned to forgive without applause, to let go quietly, without cause. For carrying hate is heavier still, and breaks the strongest iron will. His shoulders carry names, not fame, memories etched like quiet flame. Each name a reason to endure, each face a vow to stay secure. Even joy arrived with care, afraid to ask for too much space there. But he welcomed it just the same, knowing joy too strengthens frame. He understands the fragile art of guarding mind while giving heart, of staying kind in cruel terrain, of choosing peace instead of pain. If someday he must set it down, this weight he carried through the town, the ground will know, the air will feel, what stood there once was strong and real, that he lives in the long middle of things, between beginnings and endings, where applause has faded, and conclusions are still far away. Here, strength is tested most not in crises but in constancy, in showing up when no one notices, in holding steady when nothing changes. His shoulders know routine pain, the weight that comes back every day. Bills, promises, aging dreams, faces that look to him for answers. He learned that heroism is quiet, worn like an old jacket, not dramatic, not shining, but warm enough to survive the cold. Some mornings he wakes tired of being strong, tired of being the one who endures. Yet he rises anyway because someone else hasn't learned how yet. He carries patience like a tool used often, never praised. It fixes moments that anger would break, builds bridges where silence would burn. The world forgets men like him until something begins to fall. Then suddenly everyone remembers and leans where he stands. His shoulders have learned the sound of waiting, the slow ticking of responsibility. They do not rush relief, they understand timing better than hope. He has stood in rooms full of people, feeling completely alone. Still, he carried the room, still, he held the moment together. Even rest feels earned, taken in small portions. A deep breath between obligations, a quiet thought before sleep. He measures life differently now, not in success but in stability. In how many storms didn't destroy, in how many hearts stayed whole. The long middle asks the most and gives the least in return. Yet this is where true strength lives, on shoulders that never quit. Time teaches gently, then all at once. It loosens the grip of urgency, softens the edges of resolve, not to weaken, but to deepen. His shoulders still carry weight, but now they choose what truly matters. Some burdens are set down with care, others are carried with new wisdom. He learns that strength is also rest, that pausing is not surrender. The world does not collapse because he closes his eyes for a moment. He allows himself to feel the ache not as failure but as truth. Pain becomes a signal, not an enemy to silence. Younger eyes watch him now, learning without being taught. They see how he stands, how he listens, how he forgives. He no longer needs to explain himself, his life speaks clearly enough. Each choice leaves a footprint. Each kindness becomes a lesson. He smiles more slowly now, but when he does, it carries weight. It says, "I have survived, and you can too." His shoulders are not what they were, and yet they are more than ever. They hold less fear and more understanding. He stops proving, starts passing on. Strength becomes something shared, a torch handed quietly, without ceremony or demand. He listens more than he speaks because silence has taught him well. Carries answers louder than any speech ever could. He trusts others to rise, to stumble, to learn their way. Strong shoulders do not control, they create space. And in that space, others grow. The world shifts just slightly because one man learned that strength can also be gentle. There comes a time when weight transforms, no longer a burden, but a knowing. What once pressed hard against the bones now rests as memory and meaning. His shoulders remember everything, yet they no longer complain. Pain has softened into awareness, strength into understanding. He stops racing the clock, stops arguing with the past. Both have taught him enough and neither asks for more. He knows now that not every fall is meant to be prevented. Some lessons require the ground, require the courage to rise alone. So he steps back without retreating, stays near without holding tight. Love, he learns, is trust, not constant rescue. The world still leans, but differently. Not with desperation, but with respect. Not demanding, but asking. His shoulders feel lighter in this season. Not because the world weighs less, but because he carries it wisely. He forgives himself for moments missed, for words swallowed by fear. He understands now that survival itself was an act of love. Gratitude arrives quietly, not loud or overwhelming. It sits beside him like an old friend who understands. He watches days unfold without gripping them, allows joy to come and go, no longer afraid of loss because he knows he can endure it. Even sorrow bows differently now, it no longer demands his collapse. It sits, it speaks, then leaves, like weather passing through. The shoulders that once held everything now hold what matters. And in that choice, they finally find peace. He no longer stands at the center of things, yet the center still remembers him. Walls hold echoes of his steadiness. Floors recall the weight of his steps. His shoulders are not spoken of often, but their work is everywhere. In calm that follows chaos, in trust that doesn't question why. People move differently now because once someone held them steady. They carry themselves with more care, having learned what strength looks like. He watches from the edges, not forgotten, simply allowing life to continue as it should without his grip. The greatest proof of strength, he learns, is not being needed forever. His shoulders rest in ordinary days, in simple tasks, in quiet evenings. The extraordinary has dissolved into peace. Sometimes the past visits him as a shadow at dusk. It asks, "Was it enough?" And his heart answers, "Yes." He sees his strength mirrored in others, in the way they stand back up, in the way they hold their own storms without asking for rescue. The weight he once carried now moves through many lives, shared, multiplied, enduring. His shoulders, once defined by burden, are now defined by absence of fear. They have done their work, and when the world stumbles again, as it always will, it does not search for him in panic. It remembers him in courage. For strong shoulders do not disappear, they become foundations.